A government toppled by civil war. Refusing to accept Prince Lee Char as the next ruler of Mon Cala, the Quarren people join the Separatist alliance and launch an all-out attack on the Mon Calamari. Caught unprepared, the young prince and his Jedi protectors are quickly overwhelmed and forced to retreat into caves far below the capital city, leaving Count Dooku and his allies to plan their next move.
Once again, Bucketheads, Mavar Tigar. Welcome to the 134th Trident Assault Ship Spinning episode of Mandovision. Nargai Tom, and thank you so much for checking out this small, independent Star Wars podcast. Remember, the best way to reach out to us is, of course, via social media. We are at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. You can email the show at mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Please make sure you are liking, subscribing, following, and sharing this show with all the other Mandalorians in your covert. And hey, if you're thinking about it, 5-star reviews, an insanely great way to support the show without having to spend anything but a few moments of your time. And we thank you in advance for doing so. Hey, we're back at Star Wars The Clone Wars Rewatch Monday! And we are here for the, second episode of Season 4. We're still in, we are in the second episode of this Mon Calamari trilogy that's opening the season, getting to meet young Prince Lee Char and kind of exploring some of the internal politics of Mon Cala. You got the Mon Calamari people, you got the Quarren people, and the Separatists inserting themselves, creating a civil war type situation. Not the first time we're seeing something like this in an episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars, where Count Dooku and his forces sort of come in to act as a catalyst for internal strife on a planet that is loyal to the Republic. So, you get a little bit of that, but this three-parter doesn't focus too much on the politics. It's really about the making of a good leader, of a good ruler for the people. And we're seeing those struggles with Lee Char in these episodes. He learned an important lesson about learning how to fall back when it's time to retreat, when it's, instead of engaging in combat that would result in your forces and your people needlessly dying. This episode continues that, and it's right on Front Street with the Jedi fortune cookie for this episode, where it's a I have it written down here, I swear I do. Excuse me. Only through fire is a strong sword forged, and that is what's going on in this particular episode. Throughout this arc, really, is we're seeing a great leader forged by the trials, by the combat in this Clone War situation, where the Separatists have spurred civil war on Mon Cala. So we're seeing how Lee Char deals with that, and how he's going to come out the other side of this and be a great leader for his people, and bring both the Mon Calamari and the Quarren back together again. So yeah, I said it already. This is the second episode of the season. This is Gungan Attack. Original air date was September 16th, 2011. Again, much like the first episode, they put them out, big hour-long season debut to give you the first two episodes right off the bat. Our plot for this week: The Mon Cala and the Jedi are hiding beneath the underwater capital city of Mon Cala. The Jedi Council calls on the help of the Gungan army, led by Jar Jar Binks. Our writer and director team this episode, Brian Callen O'Connell is back as the director, and once again written by Jose Molina. Our cast this week, a lot of the same principles as last week. Matt Lanter as Anakin Skywalker, Adam MacArthur as Prince Lichar, Ashley Eckstein as Ahsoka Tano, Phil Lamar as Kit Fisto, Gary Anthony Williams as Rifthamson, Corey Burton as Count Dooku and Nasare. Ahmad Best is back as Jar Jar Binks. He's also Boss Leone in this as well. Catherine Tabor is Padme Amidala. Art Butler is Captain Ackbar, pre-Admiral Ackbar. Tom Kane is Yoda and the narrator. Terrence T.C. Carson is Mace Windu. Matthew Wood is the Aqua Droids. D. Bradley Baker is the Clone Troopers and the Quarren Guard. And Sassy Tin, briefly. James Arnold Taylor has a brief appearance in this as Obi-Wan Kenobi and Prisoner Number 1. And Anna Graves returns as Senator Mina Tills, the Mon Calamari senator. And all engaged in the conflict. So I want to go ahead and get into this episode. When we get to the other side of the episode, I hope you stay tuned for kind of the closing thoughts after we wrap up the show. There is something that's happened in the world of Star Wars that I wanted to talk a little bit about. I don't know. You may have already read about it. We may talk about it. This may be the first time you hear about it. But yeah, stick around to the other side of the episode break, and we'll talk a little bit about some Star Wars news that came about very, very recently as I was prepping to record this today. All right, so let's go ahead, get into the episode Gungan Attack, Season 4, Episode 2. It's time. Strap on those underwater buckets. Let's go.
And the young prince, has he been captured?
No, my lord. Unfortunately, he escaped capture and is hiding with what's left of the Jedi and their army.
Do not underestimate this boy, Tamson. He must not become a symbol for the Mon Calamari people to rally behind.
This child is but a coward. He is no leader.
That is irrelevant. The whispering of his name can rekindle hope. And hope is something we cannot allow our enemy to possess.
Remember in the last episode I was extremely complimentary towards sort of the characteristic they were giving Rifthamson of, since he's a shark-like being, that like a shark on Earth, he's constantly moving around and around and around and always in motion as a shark would be. They do away with that in this episode. We see Rifthamson right away sitting in some sort of like a seashellish like stool, and I sort of admit that it Rifthamson's joie de vivre in this episode is somewhat reduced from his in-your-face persona in the last one. Now, he still gets fired up, and he has those moments in this episode for sure. But again, I something about seeing him sitting down, I feel like he's way less threatening. The way he's always moving around in that introduction in the first part last week, way more threatening. You sort of feel like danger from that character, right? Like he could come and attack you at any moment. I mean, and we see that in that first episode when he leads the attack against the Mon Cala, and when he leads the attack against the Mon Calamari, and again, you know that sort of danger with that character, and I don't know, seeing him seated here, I feel like it sort of takes the threat away, the sort of implied threat of Rifthamson as he's sort of just, listening to Count Dooku talk, and they're having this sort of like civilized discussion about things. So not as crazy about that in this episode as I was in the first one. And we'll see what they do in the third part. But I do feel like he's less intimidating by not being in constant motion as he is in this one. And here we're getting a sort of an update on what's going on from the Count and our Quarren contact, who thinks that, they're just going to help me depose of the Mon Cala king, and then the Quarren will rule the planet, and that's not how it's going to work. And I think we can all sort of sense that coming. And the Quarren seems a bit miffed at the notion that the Mon Cala prisoners they've captured, of course they captured them, but the Mon Cala prisoners, they are sending women and children as well as the soldiers to the internment camps at the bottom of the kelp beds there. and he seems a bit taken aback by that. Like, again, another character who realizes that making a deal with Count Dooku is not the bargain they believed it would be, and not going in their favor. So yes, a bit distressing. So what we go to next. Actually, I should mention, I do like the line that Count Dooku ends the conversation with. The portion of the conversation with Tamsin about how they do not want to give their enemies hope, and that hope must be crushed. That's why it's so important that they capture Lee Char and not let him be a symbolic leader. Whether he's actually an actual good leader or not is to be determined. But they can't risk him being a symbol of something either. It's like a martyr to the cause, basically. So I liked that bit of dialogue there from the Count, sort of underlining the importance of capturing Lee Char. From here, we go to where the Jedi remnants and the Mon Cala soldier remnants are hiding out, and they're on a holocom with the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, attempting to get more backup. It's such an interesting aspect of these 3 episodes in particular, how so much conversation is occurring underwater. And I sort of like the fact that Star Wars doesn't bother to tell us the hows and whys of the way sound is moving around in the ocean, how our human characters who are helmeted in their suits are able to hear. I would assume their helmets have something to do with it. But even just the communication between other characters is not really explored in any significant way. Though there is a stretch of this episode when Kit Fisto is attempting to, get some crafts and rescue some clone troopers, that it goes very, very quiet, and it seems very, very still of the ocean in that sequence that I really, really did enjoy. But yeah, not something they do too often. And again, it's an animated series. It's an all ages sort of thing, so you don't want to spend a lot of time bogging it down in little pieces of minutia. But it is funny watching. Again, I guess I didn't have a problem with it in the first episode, but something about them watching like a holocom and just communicating with it like normal. I just was like, that's so interesting. But hey, it's Star Wars, and they have the technology, they have the tools, and they have the talent. But let's go ahead and check out the conversation that our Jedi are having after discussing with our heroes on Mon Cala. I want to get to the conversation where Yoda and Mace Windu are attempting to figure out what they can do to help their allies and the Mon Calamari.
It'll take us days to outfit another clone regiment for underwater combat.
Days our friends do not have.
Perhaps we should look to armies other than clones to help our cause.
What do you suggest?
A suitable ally we must find to help with this mission.
Yes, an underwater race that has a standing army and is close enough to send help quickly.
Naboo?
Yes, to the Gungans. We must look.
We shall contact them immediately.
So, obviously the title gives it all away, but I thought it was a really neat idea to employ the Gungans, right? Like, why not have another amphibious army that we are aware of, that we have seen already in Attack of the Clones, in the Phantom Menace, be a pretty legitimate military resource, and if they're nearby, why not employ them and sort of play on their sympathies a little bit here, because their friend and ally Queen Amidala is in danger. Excuse me, former Queen Amidala. I thought that was a very interesting choice. I really liked it. I think a lot of us in the audience, if you're in my age bracket, we had initial problems with the Gungans. I've really come around on them, like 360. I really enjoy a lot of the stuff with the Gungans, and I sort of wish we got to spend more time with them. I think they're still considered sort of like prequel pariahs in a sense amongst some of the older fans. But we have to move past that. And if they haven't watched Star Wars: The Clone Wars to see what a cool species they can be, then I don't know what else to tell people other than they're wrong. The Gungans are pretty cool. I like them a lot. I like seeing more of them. I like to continue to see more of them at some point. It'd be nice to kind of check on them in a post Return of the Jedi kind of world. Like maybe have like why can't a Gungan show up on the Mandalorian? Like that would be cool with that. I have no issues with that whatsoever. And as we saw in the Book of Boba Fett, the sort of love for the prequels kind of came out in that season, with the N1 Starfighter and several other nods and callbacks to the prequel trilogy as well. So like, why not include some Gungans in the mix again. I think that'd be really, really cool. But I think a good decision by Yoda. It'd always be fun to explore more of the different aquatic species in Star Wars. Even more of Kit Fisto's people would be interesting, but apparently they aren't close enough to help. So you're not going to get a cool army of Nautilans showing up to save the day. But the Gungans are fun, and I think they are a good resource to tap into. Meanwhile, our heroes, Lee Char and Anakin, Padme, everyone is making a plan. It's like, you know what, we got to get out of here. This situation is not good while we don't have the reinforcements. We're in a bad situation. We should get up to our ship, our Republic, carrier that brought it. It's not a carrier, it's a cruiser that brought us here. Like the counselor ship, like the one we saw Qui-Gon and young Obi-Wan arrive in the Phantom Menace. This is what they have waiting for them on the surface. So let's get back up to that thing. Let's get the heck out of here while we gather resources and reinforcements to come back and get back into this war. Liberating the Mon Cala people. So that's the plan, and this is where I talked to that sequence I talked about with Kit Fisto, where he goes off to sort of cause a diversion that would allow them to get up to the surface and grab a couple of those mini subs at the same time. Again, it's a great sequence, but our shark-headed friend Rifthamson sees this as obvious. So let's check it out once Tamsin learns out what's going on.
Sir, the Jedi have reappeared with the Prince. They are headed to the surface.
Predictable. Let them get within sight of their ship. I want them to watch their hope sink to the bottom of the sea.
All right, and that's exactly what happens. As our heroes get close to the surface, Rifthamson's forces destroy the cruiser waiting for them and send its wreckage spiraling into the ocean. And they're under heavy attack at the same time. So our heroes, they grabbed onto the debris and let it pull them towards the bottom of the ocean floor, where they think it'll be a bit safer for them, where they can kind of, again, come up with a new plan because things aren't going well. And again, it's a neat sequence. There's a lot of really good action stuff in these three-part episodes. In this three-part episode, I should say, in particular. It is sort of funny, in a sense. I sort of alluded to it on the last show. As good as these, as action-oriented as these three-parters are, this three-parter is, excuse me. It's not like super plot-heavy. It's not overly complicated. It's easy to follow along with what's going on here. You're like, okay, the Separatists and the Quarrens are the bad guys, and something bad happened. We'll talk more about the murdered king next week. But yeah, it's all pretty straightforward. So with that in mind, they're able to really kind of delve more into some really cool action sequences. Some of this episode is a little on the darker side, so make sure you have your TV adjusted correctly. But again, I still think it looks really, really good, and I guess I just have a propensity for underwater combat. I'm a fan of it. More underwater combat, never a bad thing in my opinion. But let's see what our heroes have to do as they try to get to rally and figure out their next part of staying alive. So as Ahsoka sort of is guiding Lee Char here in this episode, Ahsoka has a much more of a strong mentor role in this episode, sort of assuring Lee Char of decisions and sort of the right course of action. But I wanted to go ahead and play the sequence here where Lee Char sees the Mon Cala prisoners being taken to the internment camps and his sort of reaction to all of this. So I thought this was interesting and sort of goes back into that forging of a great leader, right? So let's check this out.
So many prisoners. Where are they taking them?
To become slaves.
I can't believe No Sarai and the Quarren agreed to this.
Count Dooku rules here for now, not the Quarren.
What you see, Prince, is the future of all the people on this world. Mon Cala and Quarren. All slaves for Count Dooku.
So yeah, he doesn't like that very much, and I can't say I blame him. So let's go ahead and check back in with Anakin and Padme and Captain Ackbar and see what they're up to now.
Captain Ackbar, which of these structures houses the city's interplanetary scanners?
It's over there, across the square. Why?
Well, just in case Master Yoda is sending reinforcements, I thought it'd be helpful if the enemy couldn't tell they were coming.
If we knock out those sensors, they won't see our reinforcements until they're right on top of the city.
Assuming someone is coming.
I am sure Master Yoda will find a way to send help. Anakin, it's your move.
Follow me.
All right, and Anakin does it. He brings down that tower so that when the Gungan reinforcements arrive, they land right on top of Tamsin's forces, and he doesn't know the difference. Again, the Gungans swoop in to save the day, and this civil war kind of goes back and forth a lot. There's a lot of attack and counterattack going on here, and after this one, it seems like the Gungan reinforcements have sort of swung things back in the favor of the Mon Cala potentially, but it's not going to last for too long. So after bringing the tower down, the bad guys come in. They're looking for Padme and Anakin, and they're doing some cool underwater combat there. And again, this is another moment here coming up where Prince Lichar gets to sort of assert himself. He's seen what's happened to his people, and he's going to be that beacon of hope that Count Dooku is so desperate to not allow him to be, to sort of keep that hope crushed and diminished. But Lichar wants to be a good leader, and he's going to assure his people, and he takes a great risk here, exposing himself to address his people. But I like the sequence, so let's check it out.
Oh no, the prince, hurry!
Yeah, Ahsoka didn't like that.
Prince, he's alive! Look there!
People of Mon Cala! All people of Mon Cala who would not be slaves! Have hope!
We will fight for you, Prince!
You will not be prisoners much longer!
Okay, I think the show is over. The guards will be coming. We have to go.
And again, they come under fire pretty quickly here, but I think it's a brave and bold sentiment from the young prince. And again, going back to our Jedi fortune cookie and the forging of a great leader. It's all right here. But this is where everything comes onto Front Street, right? And, all the forces are coming into play. The Gungans arrive to save the day. And it looks like it's turning. But of course it's not turning in our hero's favor, because this is only part 2 of 3. So let's see what happens next.
Tamsin? Tamsin, come in. Where are you? The Republic reinforcements are overwhelming our defenses. We must retreat. We must retreat now.
I warned you this attack was coming. Where are the Jedi concentrating their attack?
There are 2 groups of Jedi, one in the lower city center, and 2 releasing the prisoners near the coral base.
The prisoners? The prince must be with them. I'm committing the reinforcements that Count Dooku sent to the attack. He will not escape this time.
All right, and so what that means is they're deploying the Trident attack ships down here. They're submersible vehicles. We've seen them in previous episodes, and the Assault on Camino episodes. So we know they can do some serious damage. What they are employed in a very different way in the sort of climax of this episode, and this is probably sort of like the one area of this particular episode that I sort of am not super crazy about, because Tamsin's plan involves using the Tridents in sort of a spinning maneuver that creating these sort of like underwater whirling vortexes. To sort of cause chaos and disarray and throw the Gungan and Mon Cala forces, across the floor of the ocean and scatter them around. He's also using it to isolate certain members of this resistance, right? Like particularly Lichar. He eventually will also capture Kit Fisto. Now Lichar does make his getaway, right? But it's at the expense of Kit Fisto being captured, and all the other forces being captured too. It comes down to Ahsoka and Lichar making their escape, while everyone else has come under has been captured by the Quarren / Separatist forces here, as Rifthamson has sort of salvaged the day for the Quarren and the Confederacy here. But again, it's a great action sequence. There's a lot of fun stuff. Anakin has a lot of really good moments in this. Anakin's sort of an underplayed character in this 3-parter here, but he does have some really nice moments, particularly in this episode with some of his combat prowess on display. be sure to check that out, particularly when he goes to disable one of the Tridents by severing one of its limbs. A really good sequence, and he loves bisecting droids. It's so much fun for him. But yeah, we are at a pivotal state as our heroes are about to be captured, and the day is about to be ruined. But I do want to go back just a tiny bit, because when the vortexes are first employed, again, they were used to isolate characters, right? So you get sort of the first time Rifthamson is able to really engage in a sort of combat with Lee Char, and you have to wonder a little bit about the way that Tamsin shoots himself like a cannon. He's going right for the young prince, but it's not in the way that we saw him attack people in the previous episode. And I don't think they've established it, and I think they will do so in the next episode. But Tamsin needs the young prince alive. He can't just kill him. You can't martyr him. So that's why you see Tamsin coming at him with his hands, as opposed to just lunging with his giant jaw. And you have to keep that in mind, because I think it's something that if you're just watching it and you're not thinking about what's coming next, is Lee Char has to be captured. That's what has to happen here. That has to be the next phase of the plan. And I think we come to see that kind of fleshed out a little bit more in more detail in the third part, which again we will be covering very, very soon. But eventually, with the help of Ahsoka and Kit Fisto, Lee Char is able to get out of there and make his escape, while Kit Fisto engages in a pretty cool combat against Rifthamson. And there's a part in that sequence where Kit lands a blow that sort of like unhinges Tamsin's jaw, and you get like this kind of cool moment where Tamsin's kind of like just shifts and clicks his jaw back into place. And I just thought it was a really neat little moment for that character. Again, I don't know if that's a shark trait or not. I don't know if they can unhinge their jaws like the way snakes can, the way some snakes can do. But again, I thought it was a neat little moment for that character, and I liked it a lot. But yeah, it doesn't go well for Kit. It doesn't go well for the rest of our heroes. And Ahsoka has to be the one to sort of, again, be that mentor for young Prince Lee Char, and give some sage wisdom that she's earned and learned over her course in the Clone Wars.
Now you and I are the only ones left.
I'm sorry, Lee Char.
I know what I must do. I know my people need me. I just don't know how to win this war.
Look, I know you're scared, but you can't let your fear control you.
Aren't you scared?
I used to be. All the time. Until I realized that if you make decisions out of fear, you're more likely to be wrong.
I will unify Mon Cala again. I promise.
We have to go.
Boom. There it is. That is the second episode in this Mon Cala trilogy. What did you all think of it? I enjoyed the episode. The ending sort of wild and crazy. The way the Trident ships are used to cause those kind of whirling vortexes to sort of cause the chaos and disarray that scatters both sides of both forces, and the droids are sort of impervious to it. I thought that was interesting. I would have liked a little bit more information on why the droids could sort of move in and out of those vortexes with very much ease. I assume it's just because like they're powered that way, and they have enough power to sort of stay put and stay in position, or make their way through those high speed vortexes in the ocean. Otherwise, I think it's a really solid action-packed episode of the show, just like the first one was. The plot details are a little bit light, like they were in the first one, but again, to me, this is a pretty solid episode. Like I'm thinking around 8 buckets for this one, and the first one gets 8 buckets too. I know I forgot to give my sort of stamp on that one. I think I sort of give the first one a little bit more, like maybe 8.5 buckets even, because I really like the way Tamsin was portrayed in the first one, and he's a little bit less threatening in this episode overall. So maybe I ding it a little bit on that front. But no, I like what we're doing with Prince Lee Char. I like what we're seeing from the Mon Cala people. And eventually we'll see that the Quarren are realizing they've made a horrible mistake in siding with the Confederacy on this as well. So solid stuff. And again, a solid entry point into the season. Okay, so before we get out of here at the end of the episode, I did want to give a little special kind of shout out. and recognition of something that, again, as I record this is happening. This just happened today. By the time you hear this, it may be a week or so later. I haven't quite decided on our release schedule. I have a few life things going on that may dictate a slower release schedule than what I would normally like to do, but I want to make sure I have my bases covered to have at least one show a week for you guys to have. I don't want to have to skip weeks or anything like that. So I'm not quite sure what pace we're going to be on. But regardless of all that, I wanted to acknowledge the passing of Tom Veitch. He was a writer. In the context of Star Wars, he was, for me, the first Star Wars writer that I read, because I read his comic books before I read the Timothy Zahn novels. So his comic book through Dark Horse, with the art by the amazing Cam Kennedy, was Dark Empire, and this was just something that just blew my mind away when I was a young lad, and I was seeing a new Star Wars comic on the stands with like these amazing Dave Dorman covers. And it was like Luke Skywalker, but it looked like he was in like a Darth Vader-esque kind of suit, and this whole thing was going on. I mean, it just captured the imagination so completely. And then you read the comic book, and you're reading about your characters, at like 5-ish years after Return of the Jedi, and Princess Leia and Han Solo are married, and they're getting ready to have a kid, and Luke's trying to figure out the right path to be on for the Jedi. And you find out that there's the Emperor has returned, Emperor Palpatine, and a young clone body has come back. Gee, does that sound a little kind of familiar? Yeah. Tom started that. Tom did that first. Tom brought the Emperor back in a clone body before we even knew about the cloning cylinders and things like that, and the way the clones were created in what became canon as the prequels came about. Tom was telling those stories, and he did it with a young Emperor Palpatine being reborn into a young body, with all his Force abilities, and doing lightsaber battle with Luke Skywalker. It's also the comic book that brought back Boba Fett when he tells Han Solo that the Sarlacc found him somewhat indigestible. I mean, so many great moments, and it sort of kicked off for me the beginning of the Star Wars expanded universe, and particularly it kicked off Dark Horse's epic run of publishing Star Wars comic books for a really, really long time. Aside from the 3 Dark Empire books that there came to be, there was Dark Empire 1 and 2 and 3. I think one of Tom's most important contributions to Star Wars comics was what he did a few years after the first Dark Empire had come out, and that was Tom. It was like, hey, why instead of telling stories forward, following our heroes after Return of the Jedi and having those adventures. Like, what if we went back into the Star Wars galaxy, but thousands of years prior to the events of A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, which, again, were the only 3 movies we had at the time. So he began Star Wars Tales of the Jedi. And that series, again, captures the Jedi in such a fun and unique way. And if you read it now, looking back on those books, I think if you read them now with everything that we know about the Jedi Order and sort of like that, what we've talked about here on the show, the sort of pragmatic, dogmatic philosophies of the Jedi, Tom was doing something very, very different based off of the minimum amount of information that he had from Obi-Wan and from Yoda in that original trilogy. And he sort of spun off his own ideology of what the Jedi were supposed to be all about in his mind. And there's a lot of similarities, but there's also a lot of contradictions, as is going to be the case. But I still think those Tales of the Jedi books really, really hold up well. And if you can find them, if you can track them down, I think they are well worth your time. And the series spawned like an entire mythology. It grew into Jedi versus Sith books and the Sith War and the Freedom Nod Uprising and Ula Caldroma. I mean, like so many really memorable characters and so many memorable events depicted in the pages of the Tales of the Jedi comic books. So I definitely recommend those highly. I mean, and again, this predates BioWare doing Tales of the Old Republic. This predates all that stuff. And again, this guy was only working with the 3 movies that we had as kids, that I had as a kid. And he created a whole new mythology for the Jedi and for the Sith. And again, remember, there wasn't a lot about the Sith going on at the time either. All we knew was that Darth Vader was a Dark Lord of the Sith. That was really kind of like the only bit of information that we had about the Sith at the time. So Tom and his talented team of artists really did a lot of world building that was really fantastic, and again, just seared itself into my brain, captured my imagination in a way at a very pivotal time, where as a Star Wars fan, there wasn't a lot to look forward to. You know, we still didn't, you know, the special editions were still a few years away. The prequels were even longer away. So what Tom was doing at Dark Horse, and then ultimately what Timothy Zahn and the writers were doing with the novels, just captured my mind, captured my imagination, filled me with so much endless entertainment, even the not so good ones. And I'm mostly referring to a couple of the books. I will not name names. But the Star Wars comics were almost always a delight, and Tom's in particular, because he was weaving his own mythology, and he was world building in a really fun and profound way. And again, I don't know for sure if Marvel is allowing those books to be reprinted or republished anywhere, even digitally. I'm not sure how available they are. But if you find like an old trade paperback collection of Tales of the Jedi, of the Sith Wars, by all means, take a look at them, check them out. They're a lot of fun. Again, you're going to find some interesting things in there that sort of contradict what we know with the Jedi now. But at the time, we're like, yeah, sure, why not? That sounds awesome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and take I don't have access to the original comics at the moment. I don't have them nearby, but I have some of the trades on a bookshelf, and I'll take some pictures of those and try to post those on the Instagram in the next day or two to sort of celebrate his passing. He was 80 years old when he passed away, so feels early. It feels like it's still fairly young, you know, with so many people living into their 90s and stuff nowadays, but a good run nonetheless, and a very talented writer who to me means the world to me, because he brought Star Wars back to me in a way that at a time when I thought all I had from Star Wars was going to be VHS tapes. So I wanted to give a special in memoriam and a rest in peace to Tom Veitch, a really talented writer who, if you get a chance to read a little bit of his not necessarily like a eulogy or a obituary. But you can just read a little bit about his life. He lived quite a life. I just hope he went peacefully, I guess is all I'm really trying to say. And check out the man's work. He did really great stuff for Star Wars. All right, that being said, we are going to wrap things up, and we are going to thank the official Mando Vision Maniacs, which you can become over at patreon.com/Mando Vision. You can join the Maniacs and gain access to all the sweet bonus content. Thank you to our current Patreons, the Aspen Hill Chody, the Batman Abejo, Jeff Nail. Jeff is co-host of The Ringing Ear, a great music podcast, so check them out. Thanks to Evil Circle, the evilest of all circles, the Squid Master General, Mr. Brian Broussard, the New Jersey Devil, Mark Wegemer, our very own Joker and Harley Quinn, Brian and Krista of Pride Brewing Company here in San Diego, and the Beer Hop Breeder General, Jesus Beer Hops, as well as the Silent Assassin, he who should not be named, and Syndicate Ram, co-host of Come On, It's Still Good. Check out that podcast as well. Truly, truly appreciate all my friends and family and total strangers who are on this list that I love so dearly. Thank you for being here and supporting the show. Let's do it. Let's get out of here. We'll be back very, very soon with another Star Wars: The Clone Wars Rewatch Monday. Maybe there'll be some Bantha tracks in there, some news drops that we need to talk about. Otherwise, I hope everyone is staying awesome, staying cool. Remember, be good. Be a good Star Wars fan. Support other Star Wars fans. And don't poop on them, okay? Don't be a poopy Star Wars fan. We don't like them. And if you really want to get nuts, start unfollowing and blocking and muting the poopy Star Wars fans that are out there on Twitter and on the Instas and whatever like that. We need to cleanse ourselves of the negativity that exists out there in the fandom. And if we stop supporting these people, maybe they'll go away. Probably not, but at least we don't have to listen to them anymore. And that's the good news. All right? So everyone, take care. We'll talk soon. And remember, this podcast can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.